Okay, so with that, let's bring in our NFL Network insider, Ian Rappaport, Mike Garafolo as well. And guys, let's start with Case Keenum and the Broncos. Ian, why did the Broncos settle pretty quickly on Keenum?
Well, this is something that actually was part of their plan. They did make an offer for Kirk Cousins. They did make a small run at him, but as soon as they knew they were out, they very quickly pivoted to Case Keenum. And there really is, in their minds, a lot to like about Keenum. First of all, this is something that someone who Gary Kubiak has been very familiar with throughout the balance of his career, someone he likes a lot, obviously knows his talents extremely well, had him in Houston. He's also a lot cheaper. This is a deal expected to come in about $18 million per year, short-term deal for Kirk Cousins, who's going to make probably $10 million more than that. That's why this makes sense for the Broncos, and it also does not necessarily preclude them from taking a quarterback in the top 10, something considering the fact that they are in Oklahoma today, hanging out with Baker Mayfield during his pro day. That's probably a good thing.
Yeah, that's according to our Andrew Groover, who was our pro day producer. Man, he's all over the pro day. You got to give him a follow on Twitter. I'll tell you who's at what pro day. He's all over that beat.
He's got to be
with
paying
Keenum.
for this.
No, well, he's paying me in friendship. With Keenum, the Broncos realized they were already losing contingency plans like the other day when Tyrod Taylor went from Buffalo to Cleveland. So they didn't want to lose out on Keenum. And everybody's looking at this saying, oh, Case Keenum, was this a one-year flash in the pan? Is he going to go back to being the guy that he was? Two things. One, Ian, you mentioned Houston. He played better in Houston than people gave him credit for. That's number one. Number two, I'm told the Broncos actually think he could be even better than he was last year, that there's actually room for improvement, and they could be buying low on Case Keenum. I believe that or not. I mean, well, we shall see. If so, that would certainly rewrite this Case Keenum story one more time. And you talked about the potential to draft a quarterback. How about Paxton Lynch? You've still got an opportunity, Paxton. You can show this team you can be the franchise quarterback of the future, but it's going to take a lot. It's going to take work ethic and dedication, all that stuff, day in and day out, even if he's not the starter.
Mike, you sending a message to Paxton Lynch here? I mean, that was pretty motivational.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Listen, it's day three, day one of free agency, but day three of our wall-to-wall coverage. I'm going to be talking to people, at people, about people. Stick with us all day.
Well, look, I was just glad that Ian finally let loose some of those details on the Keenum contract. I was about to get Dan Hellie, NFL Total Access Insider, on the line and see if to see if we could get those. But hey, well, Mike, let me ask.
It's 10:30 Eastern, and Hellie hasn't scooped anything yet. Wake up, Dan Hellie.
That's right. Hey, well, let me ask you this then, because we touched on it a little bit, but with that ringing endorsement, Mike, of Case Keenum from the Broncos, from what you're hearing there, does that make them more likely, less likely, or the same to take a quarterback there at, let's say, number 5?
I believe it's going to be how it falls. I really do believe it's going to be how it falls, because now you're going to start to see some teams like the Buffalo Bills, maybe the Arizona Cardinals, start to jump up here. Let's see what the Jets do at number 6, whether they want to get up, because there are a couple entry points early on here at 2 with the Giants potentially, at 3, at 4. Depending on what happens with the Browns, I know they like Baker Mayfield, but depending on what happens with the Browns, Cleveland might be willing to slide back at number 4. So I find this dance that's coming up here at the top of the draft for a quarterback to be very interesting potentially.
Well, it is not a mistake that the entire Broncos brass is in Oklahoma today, and I would expect them to do the full gauntlet of pro days and evaluations for the quarterback position. Case Keenum obviously played well last year, but he did sign a short-term deal, which is good for him, because if he does improve, if he does solidify his standing as a starter in the league, then he can go somewhere else and be a starter for long-term. But the Broncos have been searching. Obviously, they took Paxton Lynch in the first round a couple years back. They're going to do all their due diligence, all their homework this year to make sure if the right quarterback falls to them in the top 10, that they can just grab him.